All right, so are you ready to laugh? Today, we are diving deep into the world of comedy with Donnell Rawlings. You know him from Chappelle Show and The Wire, but we're going way beyond those iconic roles. We're going to be checking out his interview on Club Shay Shay. And let me tell you, this guy has stories.
Oh, it's not just stories. Rawlings really gives us a look at how the comedy game has changed, especially for black comedians.
Yeah, that's right. He got his start, back in the day on the chitlin circuit, which, for those who don't know, it was this whole network of venues, mostly in the South, where black performers could really, develop their craft at a time when mainstream opportunities were pretty limited.
Yeah, it was a crucial proving ground. So
Yeah.
many black comedians came up through the chitlin circuit, and it really shaped their comedic voices.
Yeah.
Rawlings talks about how he really honed his skills in that environment.
And it wasn't long before those skills got him noticed by Dave Chappelle, right? He got hired on Chappelle Show, initially as the warm-up act. But, he quickly became a fan favorite with his amazing improv skills. And let's not forget those unforgettable characters he created, like Ashy Larry. But here's something I found really interesting. He only made $500 per sketch. Can you believe that?
Wow, that's shocking, especially given how huge that show was. It really makes you wonder. How often are young performers undervalued like that, even on those massively successful shows? Do you think that's still happening today?
That's a great question. You'd hope things have gotten better, right? But you'd never really know what's going on behind the scenes with those contracts and stuff. But you know what? Rawlings doesn't seem bitter at all. He really emphasizes that a big part of his success came from, being prepared
Yeah.
and just grabbing those unexpected opportunities when they came up.
Absolutely. His journey on Chappelle's Show is a perfect example of that. It's like that yes and principle they talk about in improv,
Yeah.
that ability to just build on whatever your scene partner throws at you. And Rawlings, he totally mastered that. He created these hilarious moments just on the fly.
It's pretty amazing how he was juggling that show with another iconic role at the same time. I mean, he was playing Bubbles on HBO's The Wire, and that's a character so different from his comedic persona. That's a tough transition to make,
Yeah, you rarely saw comedians
Yeah.
moving between stand-up comedy and serious drama back then. Rawlings was one of the few who can really pull it off. It showed how incredibly versatile he is.
He really is multi-talented. And, he's got some interesting thoughts about how comedy's evolved. He's pointed out that comedians of his generation often came from tougher backgrounds, what he called seedy backgrounds, and they use those experiences to fuel their comedy.
Yeah, and that observation about seedy backgrounds connects to a larger historical trend in comedy. I mean, early stand-up often drew from blue comedy, and observational humor rooted in those challenging life experiences, like turning pain into laughter. Do you see that same kind of raw, experiential humor in comedy today?
That's a good question. It feels like the landscape has shifted a bit, right? But maybe that rawness is still there, just expressed in different ways.
Yeah, it's definitely something to think about. As we explore the rest of Rawlings' insights, and speaking of insights, Rawlings also talked about the I'm Rich Bitch tour that he organized with Charlie Murphy and Bill Burr. Now, that was a power move.
Hold on, he organized that. I had no idea. That really shows his business savvy, bringing those comedic forces together.
Exactly. It wasn't just his entrepreneurial spirit, though. Remember, he actually helped launch Charlie Murphy's stand-up career. That's huge.
Wow, I'm learning so much about him that I never knew. He's clearly not just a funny guy. He's got a sharp mind for the business side of things, too. And, he's got some great advice about navigating the entertainment world. I love that story he told about always being extra nice to 33-year-old executives because they were 12 watching the show.
That's brilliant. He's playing the long game, He understands that building genuine connections can pay off big time down the road.
Yeah, that's some serious wisdom right there. It makes you think about how important those relationships really are, no matter what field you're in.
For sure. It seems like loyalty is a big part of Rawlings' career,
Yeah.
especially when you think about how strongly he defends Dave Chappelle in the face of, all the recent controversy.
Okay, let's talk about that Chappelle connection for a minute. It's obviously a strong bond, but I wonder, isn't there a risk in tying your career so closely to another comedian, even someone as successful as Chappelle? What do you think?
That's a valid point.
Yeah.
While there's a lot of value in learning from and collaborating with someone who's at the top of their game, it's also crucial to maintain your own identity and carve your own path.
Exactly. So how has Rawlings managed to do that? I mean, it can't be easy to step out from under the shadow of a figure like Chappelle.
Yeah, it's a delicate balance for
Yeah.
sure. But, Robin can still have his moments to shine. Think about those Ashy Larry sketches on Chappelle's Show. Those were all Rawlings. He brought his own unique energy and talent to those.
That's true. Those moments wouldn't have been the same without him. But he's also done a lot outside of Chappelle's show. Didn't Joe Rogan encourage him to start his own podcast?
He did.
Yeah.
It shows how supportive the comedy community can be, even at the highest levels. Like, Rogan is a huge name, but he's still willing to share advice and help others rise up.
That's pretty awesome to see. And speaking of doing his own thing, his move from LA to Ohio during the pandemic was a pretty bold move. Most comedians seem to flock to the coasts. Why do you think he made that change?
It really shows that success doesn't always have to follow a set path. Maybe Rawlings just felt like he needed to prioritize his personal happiness and find a place that aligned better with his values.
Yeah, it definitely goes against the grain. I kind of admire that. And it doesn't seem like it slowed him down creatively at all. I mean, Dave Chappelle even produced his latest stand-up special for Netflix.
And I heard Chappelle was a tough critic during that process.
Yeah.
He apparently pushed Rawlings to reshoot the special multiple times to make sure it was just right. It shows the value of having a mentor who believes in you and really pushes you to reach your full potential.
Yeah, it's that tough love that can make all the difference sometimes. Like having a coach in your corner, always pushing you to be your best. But it's not all sunshine and rainbows in the comedy world. Rawlings was pretty open about some of the darker aspects of the industry, like those wild parties that Diddy used to throw.
Oh, yeah. He told that story about that awkward photo op at a Diddy party. That could easily gone viral.
Yeah.
And overshadowed all of his talent. It reminds us that celebrity gossip can be a huge distraction from all the hard work in artistry. That goes into building a career.
Yeah, that's true. It's easy to get caught up in those headlines and forget about the real people behind the stories.
Yeah.
And speaking of sensitive topics, he also touched upon the Me Too movement and how it seems to be checking itself.
Yeah, it's a complex issue.
Yeah.
Cultural movements, while often necessary, can sometimes have unintended consequences.
Yeah.
It's important to have those honest conversations, about power dynamics and accountability, especially in an industry like entertainment.
For sure. And what's interesting? He thinks that cancel culture is on its way out. Do you think he's right about that?
It's hard to say for sure. Societal attitudes are constantly changing. What's unacceptable today might be viewed totally differently tomorrow. It'll be interesting to see how all that plays out in the comedy world.
Yeah, I agree. But let's switch gears for a second. I'm curious, have you ever been in a situation where you were working alongside someone super successful and people kept asking you if you were tired of playing Robin?
Yeah, that's a question a lot of people in collaborative fields face. It's natural to want that individual recognition, but there's so much value in learning from those who are at the top. Robin can still have his defining moments. And sometimes the journey is just as important as the destination.
That's a great perspective.
Yeah.
Sometimes we get so focused on the end goal that we forget to enjoy the process and learn along the way.
Exactly. And speaking of journeys, let's circle back to Rawlings' observations about the current comedy landscape. He's noticed this trend in Hollywood toward these black package shows that feature a certain group of black comedians. But he's been wondering why he's often left off of those lineups.
Wait, what? That doesn't make sense. He's incredibly talented and well-known. Why wouldn't they include him?
Well, he speculates that maybe he doesn't fit neatly into that category of black comedian. Because of his diverse audience, he's not just appealing to one demographic.
That's interesting. Do you think there's still pressure on performers, especially comedians of color, to fit into these predetermined boxes?
It's certainly possible. Even with the push for diversity, the industry can still be quick to categorize and label people. It's something to keep in mind.
That makes sense. It's like they're trying to define what a black comedian should be, which is super limiting. But hey, maybe Rawlings being left off those lineups just means he's breaking down those barriers and reaching an even wider audience.
Yeah, that's a great way to look at it. He's transcending those narrow definitions and connecting with people from all walks of life. That's the power of his comedy.
It really is. So where do we go from here? What are some key takeaways from all of this? It feels like Rawlings has given us a lot to think about.
Oh, he definitely has. I think one of the biggest takeaways for me is the importance of hard work, preparation, and seizing those unexpected opportunities. Rawlings' story really shows that.
Absolutely. But it's not just about grinding it out. It's also about building genuine connections, playing the long game, and recognizing that success doesn't always have to look a certain way.
Right. He's shown us that it's okay to forge your own path, even if that means moving away from those traditional centers of the industry or challenging those predefined categories.
And through it all, he stayed true to his comedic vision and never lost that infectious sense of humor.
He's a reminder that laughter can be such a powerful tool, not just for entertainment, but for processing life's craziness and connecting with people on a deeper level.
Okay, I gotta ask. What was your favorite Rawlings moment from this whole deep dive? There were so many great stories and insights. What really stood out to you?
Oh, man, that's tough. There's so much to choose from. But I think one of the most powerful moments was when he talked about the importance of mentors and having someone in your corner who believes in you and pushes you to be your best.
Oh, yeah. I loved that part too. It's like he was saying you don't have to go alone. Find your tribe, your mentors, your support system, and lean on them.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to give back and support others who are coming up behind you.
So true. It's all about paying it forward. Okay, before we wrap this up, I want to go back to something Rawlings mentioned earlier. He talked about how he was the only comedian on the Chappelle summer camp tour who wasn't there the night Chappelle was attacked on stage.
Yeah, that was a scary reminder of the risks comedians face when they're performing live. You know, it makes you realize how vulnerable they are up there, putting themselves out there night after night.
Yeah, and it's not just physical risks. They're putting their ideas, their perspectives, their hearts out there, open to criticism and judgment. It takes a lot of courage to do what they do.
Absolutely. And incidents like that, attack on Chappelle, can impact the whole comedy community, not just the performer, but the audience too. It affects that sense of safety and shared experience.
It's a reminder that comedy, while often lighthearted, can also touch on some sensitive topics and challenge societal norms. And that can sometimes make comedians targets. It's a delicate balance. They have this unique power to make us laugh, think, and question things. But they also need to feel safe to express themselves without fear of being harmed.
It's a conversation we need to keep having, especially in today's world, where tensions are high and lines are often blurred. But let's not end on a heavy note. Let's shift back to Rawlings and his incredible journey. You know, looking back on everything we've talked about, it's clear that Rawlings has this amazing ability to navigate all the craziness of the entertainment industry while still staying true to himself.
Absolutely. He's found that balance, you
Yeah.
know, between those high-profile collaborations and creating his own space, his own voice. That's not easy to do.
And he does it all with this incredible sense of humor. I mean, some of his stories are just wild. Remember that one about him playing basketball with Kevin Durant? He claimed he crossed Durant over, hit the game-winning shot, and then called a timeout even though he didn't have the ball. Oh, man, that's classic Rawlings. You never know how much is true and how much is embellished. That's part of what makes him so funny. He's just a natural storyteller. He finds the humor in everything.
Yeah, he's got that gift, turning everyday moments into comedy gold. And I think that's something we can all learn from. Sometimes we get so serious, you know? We forget to find the joy and the laughter in the everyday stuff.
That's so true. Rawlings reminds us to lighten up a bit and find those moments of humor, even when things are tough.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of Donnell Rawlings, what's one thing you hope our listeners take away from all this?
I hope they're inspired by Rawlings' resilience, his ability to adapt, and his dedication to his craft. You know, he's shown us that success isn't always a straight line. It's about embracing those detours, learning from the challenges, and always staying true to who you are.
That's a great way to put it. And I hope they're also inspired to find their own voice, to tell their own stories, and to never be afraid to laugh, even when life throws them a curveball.
It's been great diving deep with you today. I feel like we've only scratched the surface of Rawlings' story, but hopefully this gave our listeners a taste of his humor, his insights, and his amazing journey.
I totally agree. And if you want to hear more from the man himself, definitely check out his podcast, The Donnell Rawlings Show. He's got a lot to say.
Yeah.
And it's always entertaining and thought-provoking.
Absolutely. And until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep laughing.